There's a strange thing about people who never seem stressed about money. You'd expect them to have the most complicated systems, color-coded spreadsheets, 17 accounts, a budgeting app for the budgeting app. But when you actually look at how financially stable people run their money, it's almost boring how simple it is. A handful of rules, automated, repeated for years. They're not smarter than you, and a lot of them don't even earn more than you. They've just removed the noise. Here's the part most people get backwards. Financial stress usually isn't a math problem. It's a decision fatigue problem. Every purchase, every should I or shouldn't I, every account you have to log into and check, that's mental clutter, and clutter is exhausting. So the goal isn't to manage your money harder, it's to manage it less by building a small set of rules that make the right decision the automatic one. That's what minimalist money actually means. Not deprivation, not eating rice and beans in a cold apartment. It means fewer decisions, fewer moving parts, fewer things quietly draining you in the background. And to be clear up front, some of this is about income, cost of living, debt, and circumstances you didn't choose, and no list of rules erases that. A rule can't lower your rent or cover a medical bill. But within whatever room you do have, these rules are about using it well instead of letting it slip through your fingers. So here are 20 rules. Keep the ones that fit your life. But if you follow even half of them, being broke stops feeling like a permanent condition and starts feeling like something you left behind. Rule 1. Give every dollar a job before the month starts. Most people spend first and look at what's left. The problem is there's usually nothing left, and they have no idea where it went. Flip it. Before the month begins, you decide on purpose where the money goes. Rent, groceries, savings, fun, all of it on one page. It takes 15 minutes. And it turns money from something that happens to you into something you actually direct. You don't need a fancy app for this. A single note on your phone works. Rule 2. Automate everything that shouldn't require willpower. Willpower is a terrible way to run your finances because it runs out. Every month you have a finite amount of it. And if paying yourself first depends on you feeling disciplined on payday, you'll lose that fight eventually. So take yourself out of the loop. Automatic transfer to savings the day your paycheck lands. Automatic bill pay. The best financial decision you'll ever make is the one you only have to make once. Rule 3. Simplify your accounts until you can hold them in your head. You don't need 8 accounts. Most people can run their entire financial life on one checking account, one savings account, and maybe one credit card. That's it. Every extra account is one more login, one more balance to track, one more place for money to hide from you. Minimalism isn't just about stuff. It's about the quiet complexity you've agreed to manage without noticing. Rule 4. Put a waiting period on wanting. Here's a simple one that saves people thousands. For anything that isn't a necessity, wait. Small stuff, wait a day. Bigger stuff, wait a week. Most of the time, the urge just evaporates. Because you weren't really buying the thing, you were buying the feeling of the moment, and the feeling doesn't last. The purchases that survive the wait are usually the ones actually worth making. Picture the last 3 impulse buys you regret. Almost none of them would have survived a week on a list. The waiting period isn't a punishment. It's a filter, and it costs you nothing except a little patience. Rule 5. Define your enough. This is the rule almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one here. Most financial anxiety comes from an invisible finish line that keeps moving. You get the raise, and the target moves. You get the house, and the target moves. If you never define what enough looks like, enough income, enough house, enough stuff, you'll spend your whole life chasing a number you can't name. Sit down and actually write it. What does enough look like for you? The income, the home, the lifestyle where you'd stop and say, this is good, because you can't feel stable while you're aiming at a moving target. The person making $80,000 and the person making $300,000 can feel exactly the same amount of broke, and usually the difference isn't the income. It's whether they ever defined the finish line. Rule 6. Build one boring emergency fund and leave it alone. An emergency fund isn't an investment. It's not supposed to grow or impress anyone. It's supposed to sit there and be boring. Start with a small buffer. Even $500 changes how a flat tire feels. Then build toward 3 months of expenses. And these numbers aren't hypothetical. Kelley Blue Book put the average car repair in 2025 at around $838. That's not a rare catastrophe. That's a Tuesday. The whole point of the fund is that a Tuesday like that stays annoying instead of turning into debt. And this matters more than people admit. In the Federal Reserve's 2024 survey, about 63% of adults said they could cover a surprise $400 expense with cash, which means roughly 37% couldn't do it without borrowing or selling something. Around 30% said they couldn't cover 3 months of expenses by any means at all. That's not a character flaw. It's just what happens when the fund doesn't exist yet. Keep it in a separate bank, out of sight, and pretend it isn't there until the day you need it. Federal Reserve +2. Rule 7. Treat your credit card like a debit card. There's nothing wrong with a credit card. The points are nice, the fraud protection is real, but there's exactly one rule that separates a credit card that helps you from a credit card that quietly ruins you. Pay the full statement balance every single month, not the minimum, the full balance. Because the average credit card interest rate right now is around 21%, and for people actually carrying a balance, it runs even higher. At those rates, a balance you meant to pay off eventually turns into a tax on your past. If you can't pay it in full, that's your signal to stop using it until you can. Experian. Rule 8. Buy fewer things, but buy them better. Minimalists aren't cheap, they just hate waste. There's a difference. Cheap is buying the $12 shoes 4 times a year. Better is buying one pair that lasts and thinking in cost per use. A $300 coat you wear for 6 winters costs you $50 a year. A cheap one you replace every season might cost you more and leave you cold. Fewer, better things means less clutter, less replacing, and honestly less thinking about stuff at all. The math is quietly on your side too. Something you buy once and keep for a decade almost always beats the same money spent 3 times over on things that fall apart. Owning less of higher quality is one of the rare moves that saves money and simplifies your life at the same time. Rule 9. Audit your subscriptions like they're trying to rob you, because some of them are. Subscriptions are designed to be forgotten. That's the entire business model. A small charge, automatic, invisible, month after month, for something you stopped using in March. Once a month, pull up your statement and read every recurring charge out loud. If you can't remember the last time you used it, cancel it. $10 here, $15 there. It doesn't feel like anything, but $100 a month in forgotten subscriptions is $1,200 a year walking out the door for nothing. Rule 10. Don't finance things that lose value. This is a hard line worth holding. If you can't buy it with cash, or you'd have to drain your emergency fund to do it, you probably can't afford it yet. That goes double for anything that loses value the second you own it. Cars, gadgets, furniture, the buy now, pay later checkout button. And that button is everywhere now. Roughly 15% of adults used buy now, pay later recently, and nearly a quarter of those users were late on a payment. It's marketed as convenience. Often it's just debt wearing a friendlier outfit. Financing an appreciating asset like a home is one thing. Financing a phone you'll replace in 2 years is something else. The test is simple. If the thing will be worth less than what you owe on it a year from now, cash is the honest way to buy it. If you can't buy it in cash, the purchase is telling you something, and it's worth listening. Fed communities. Notice something about the rules so far. None of them ask you to earn more. That comes later, and it helps. But you can't out-earn a leaky system, and most people are quietly leaking. The next few rules are about plugging the leaks. Rule 11. One in, one out. Want a clean, cheap rule that controls both spending and clutter at the same time? For every new thing that comes in, something goes out. New pair of jeans, an old pair leaves. New gadget, the old one gets sold or given away. It sounds like it's about tidiness, but what it really does is make you pause before every purchase and ask whether the new thing is genuinely better than what you already own. Most of the time, it isn't. Rule 12. When your income goes up, let your savings go up first. Raises are dangerous, and nobody warns you. A raise feels like permission to upgrade everything, the apartment, the car, the routine, and if the whole raise disappears into a bigger lifestyle, you'll earn more for years and feel exactly as stretched as before. You don't have to save all of it. Enjoy some. That's the point of earning more. But send a slice of every raise straight to savings before you get used to seeing it. The lifestyle you never adopt is the one you never have to fund. Rule 13. Have a 5-minute money date once a week. You don't need to obsess over your money. You just can't ignore it. Once a week, 5 minutes, you look. What came in, what went out, what's coming up. That's it. This one habit does something quietly powerful. It removes the fear. Most money anxiety isn't about the numbers themselves. It's about not knowing the numbers. The people who feel calm about money aren't the ones with the most of it. They're the ones who always know roughly where they stand. Fear grows in the dark. 5 minutes of looking, once a week, is enough light to keep it from ever getting started. Rule 14. Protect the big three and stop sweating the small stuff. Here's where a lot of budgeting advice gets it exactly backwards. It tells you to agonize over a $4 coffee while ignoring the decisions that actually move your life. For almost everyone, 3 categories dominate everything else: housing, transportation, and food. Get those 3 roughly right, and you can be pretty relaxed about the rest. Get them wrong: too much house, too much car, and no amount of coffee skipping will save you. Spend your energy where the dollars actually are. Rule 15. Keep housing under a ceiling you set on purpose. Since housing is usually the biggest number in anyone's life, it deserves its own rule. A common guideline is to keep housing costs under about 30% of your take-home pay. It's not a law, and in expensive cities it's genuinely hard, sometimes impossible, and that's a real constraint, not a personal failure. But the principle holds. The more of your income that's locked into rent or a mortgage, the less room you have to breathe when anything goes wrong. Every extra $100 of fixed housing cost is $100 that can't flex when life does. Rule 16. Separate want from need honestly, and then let yourself want. Minimalism doesn't mean you only buy needs. That's not a life. It means you're honest about which is which, so you can spend on wants without guilt. The trap isn't wanting things. The trap is dressing up a want as a need, so you don't have to make a real choice. I need a new phone. Do you? Or do you want one? Both answers are allowed. But name it correctly, because the moment a want gets relabeled as a need, it stops being a decision and starts being an assumption. Rule 17. Keep a buffer so you never live at zero. Living paycheck to paycheck at exactly zero is like driving with the fuel light always on. Technically you're moving, but any bump ends the trip. So build a small cushion into your checking account. A few $100s you mentally pretend is the new zero. It quietly kills overdraft fees, late fees, and that low-grade dread of the days before payday. It's not an emergency fund. It's just a shock absorber, so a slightly off week doesn't turn into a crisis. Rule 18. Renegotiate your recurring bills once a year. Some of your biggest expenses are just negotiable, and you never asked. Car insurance, phone plans, internet, streaming bundles. Companies count on your inertia. Once a year, spend an afternoon calling around, comparing, and asking for a better rate. "I've been a customer for 3 years, and I'm looking at other options," is a sentence that has saved people hundreds of dollars in a single phone call. You do the work once, and you keep the savings every month for the rest of the year. Rule 19. Spend freely on what you love, and cut hard on what you don't. This is the whole philosophy in one line. Minimalist money isn't about spending as little as possible on everything. It's about spending generously on the 2 or 3 things that genuinely make your life better, and being ruthless about everything else. If travel lights you up, fund it. If good coffee is your thing, buy the good coffee, and don't apologize. But that permission has a price. You have to actually cut the stuff you won't remember next week. Most people do the opposite. They spend a little on everything and a lot on nothing that matters. 100 small purchases that add up to real money and add up to no real joy. Pick your 2 or 3. Fund them without guilt. Starve the rest. Rule 20. Make no the default for new commitments. Every subscription, every upgrade, "it's only $20 a month" is a small permanent weight added to your life. Individually, they're nothing. Together, they're the reason a good income still feels tight. So flip the default. Instead of saying yes unless there's a reason not to, say no unless there's a real reason to. Protect the simplicity you've built, because the goal was never to own more, track more, or manage more. The goal was to need less of your attention so your money can quietly run in the background while you go live your actual life. So look back at those 20 rules and notice what almost none of them are about. They're barely about money at all. They're about removing decisions, removing clutter, removing the low, constant hum of financial noise that most people just accept as normal. Being financially stable was never about having some elaborate system that impresses people. Remember the people we started with, the ones who never seemed stressed about money. This is their secret. Not more rules, fewer, better ones, followed for long enough that they stopped being rules and just became the way things are. You don't have to get all 20 right. Start with 1, automate a transfer, cancel a subscription, define your enough. Then let it get boring, because in money, boring is exactly what winning feels like.